Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my outrageously entitled and dangerous mother-in-law stole my collector's card to kidnap my child. She insists that a man of color like me cannot take care of a white kid and that's why she must intervene. This woman makes my life hell and I honestly don't know what to do. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is a story from r/am_I_the_jerk and it is titled, "He called me a second-class person." So my fiancé has 3 kids from his former marriage while I have 2 from my former marriage as well. I quit my job to start focusing on getting my degree. He has become the breadwinner if you will, although I still contribute with my savings. I also do 80% of childcare and chores. Long story short, he wanted me and my kids to attend Thanksgiving with his family, who are located across country, and we were supposed to go yesterday, ahead of time to get a rental place. He booked our tickets and everything, but later, before the flight, I found out that he, his kids and myself were put in first class, whilst my 2 kids, 14 and 10, were put in economy. I was stunned. He acted like it was no big deal and told us it is just a few hours, and the kids could just hang in there for a little while. I asked how he could think this was acceptable and he got mad and said that he is the one paying for tickets and then we go by his rules. I immediately turned around and took the kids and made my way out of the airport. He started following us, screaming at me to go back, but I refused and told him that I no longer felt like spending Thanksgiving with his folks after this. My youngest cried because she never flew without me. He went with his kids. Me and the kids are now home and he has not stopped calling, trying to berate me, and even had his mom text that I needed to get over myself and stop teaching my kids to be spoiled and entitled. She said that the fact that I was willing to miss Thanksgiving with the family over something so trivial shows my real character and personality and mindset or lack thereof. I have not replied, but I feel horrible. So, Reddit, am I the butthole? Should I have just let it slide and just went? In case I wasn't clear, me and the kids left our family/hometown so we could go celebrate with his family in his hometown. And yeah, Ripe stars, let us know in the comments whether you think that OP is the a-hole or not. Let us know your thoughts. And then OP said, "My kids were not too excited leaving their grandparents for a week or so. Update, I'm currently getting myself and the kids packed so that we go stay with my mother." By the way, this has happened before in other instances, but I kept thinking to myself, this is not right, but I have invested too much time and effort in this relationship, so maybe this should not get in the way. And I would try to minimize most situations where I find my kids being put last. Not only that, but he tried to give me an ultimatum regarding getting my degree, and what was my response? This is not right, but I kept making light of it and letting go. Now he's probably bad-mouthing me to the whole family, and so is his mom. Bless her effing heart. The kids and I are leaving, he'll be coming back to an empty home. Except that he will find some company with the engagement ring that I took off and left on the nightstand. Distance and some re-evaluation is needed right now. Thank you to all who reached out with helpful input and perspectives. And by the way, you are right, my kids come first and that's what I keep trying to do and I hope I won't ever fail. Thank you so much for the support. And a user in the comments said, "No, you are right and not the a-hole. Either all kids fly one way or no dice. If you can afford first class for 4, you can afford first class for 6 or all fly economy if you don't want kids to feel entitled. He has clearly shown where your kids rate to him, especially over his kids. You may want to rethink marriage to an a-hole like this." Comment number 2, not the a-hole. His kids in first class, your kids in economy? That's a bad sign for the future. And then also his responses to berate you and the future mother-in-law calling your kids spoiled and entitled? Even worse. It would not have ended here. I would be done with that relationship. And the next one is titled, "Mother-in-law steals my classic car and kidnaps my child." And yes, this is the title story. So, early retirement from the army was a scary decision at first, but my wife and 4-year-old toddler make it feel so natural. My father was in the military too, so the habits of an army man have always been imbibed in my blood. My wife Allison and I met in college but only began dating after she got divorced from her ex-husband. By then I had already enlisted in the army and got posted in a different country. She had Jason from her previous marriage, but I had always loved that kid like he was my own. There were so many missed holidays, birthdays and anniversaries that before marrying me, she made me promise that if I was to be Jason's father, he would never have to go through the pain of an absent father ever again. She was extremely understanding and patient while I served the nation, but when I made my vows, I knew it was my turn to make changes. Jason was the kind of child that you couldn't help but dote over. Not once did I regret retiring from the army when it meant I get to raise an absolute angel. We spent so much time bonding over long drives in my Camaro, and his patience always astounded me. I have thought to myself so many times that he takes after his mother. That's why it was so surprising that my mother-in-law, Sharon, was such a piece of work. She was very old-fashioned, which meant she did not approve of her white daughter marrying me, an African-American man. I would have liked to say that she was never cruel to me, there was just this unspoken tension in the air, but that simply wasn't true. Sharon made no effort to hide her disdain towards me. At every family event, she made it a point to snarkily bring up the fact that my skin was of a different color. It did not matter to her that I served in the army, or that I was working really hard to get my new sports equipment store up and running, or even the fact that I earned enough to own a 1969 Copo Camaro. I would have easily been able to ignore all of her comments considering I'd been dealing with racism my whole life, but what really got to me was when she went around saying that I would be a horrible father. She assumed I would never be able to raise a white child. Despite how much that bothered me, I had to work my hardest to make sure Jason did not hear any of this. I knew Jason would have never believed any of this, but that did not mean it would not hurt him, so my wife and I decided it was best that he did not meet his grandma too often. Additionally, Allison did not like the gender stereotypes she tried to instill in Jason. She never let Jason pick anything that was pink whenever she took him out to get him a gift. It happened to be his favorite color, and even though Allison and I were supportive of whatever he chose, Sharon thought that we were giving him too much freedom and that somehow this was my fault too. However, living in the same city meant that we couldn't entirely keep Jason away from his grandma. She made it a point to visit us more so she could teach Jason her good old American values. He was a kind, innocent boy and always greeted her with a smile. Usually, this would have been a great thing, but it made it harder to explain to Sharon that she was not exactly welcome here. She assumed Jason must love her the most as she just did not get the concept of politeness. In her head, she crafted a whole story about how I, a black man, was trying to steal her grandson away the same way that she assumed I tainted and stole her daughter away. She began showing up whenever I was at the sports store or when Allison was at work so she would not be outnumbered. We could not exactly drag her away from Jason either. The only thing that we could do was wait until Jason realized that he did not want to be around her anymore himself. However, this did not take too long to happen, but it meant we had to go through the most terrifying day. What made it worse was that she had to involve the Camaro as well. So I had worked so hard to increase the sales at the shop to ensure that I could buy the same car my father drove. Someday I planned on passing it on to Jason, but Sharon had other plans. We had not left Jason alone from the time Allison and I got married, and we did not really intend on changing that until he was old enough to be on his own. So when Allison had gone for her shift, I stayed by him and we watched Thomas and Friends. He was obsessed with trains and the show usually gets him into a trance. I figured I could squeeze in a quick shower before the current episode that was running got done. However, when I got back, I was surprised to find that he was not there in front of the television anymore. I thought to myself that maybe he got hungry and popped by the kitchen and dining room, but he was nowhere in sight. I did a quick scan of the house and then another followed by another scan before I decided that he was no longer in the house. However, Jason did not know how to unlock the door by himself yet. Then I realized that the TV was turned off and there was definitely no way he could have pulled that off since he was not even half as tall as the shelf I had put my remote on. I rushed out immediately to see if whoever turned off the TV and took Jason was still around, but I was shocked to find that even my car was missing, the Camaro. I generally kept my car keys in a pen stand, and unless the person behind already knew where it was, there should have been no way they knew exactly where to find it. I called Allison to ask her if it was her, but she panicked too because she was still at work. We both knew there was only one other person who could have kidnapped our child. I called the cops and informed them of Sharon's address and immediately rushed over there myself. When I got there, I banged on the door loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. When she opened the door, Jason rushed past her and hugged me in tears. He cried while explaining to me how Grandma burned his purple dinosaur because it was almost pink. Sharon just went on to yell about how boys should not be crying and that I had raised him all wrong. This was when the cops arrived, but she ignored them and went on to say I probably stole the car that I've now owned for more than 4 years and the cops are finally here to get me. She was stunned when she found out that the cops were actually here to arrest her for theft and kidnapping. She stated that she would pull out papers from the car that proved to who the car belonged. When she seemed to be looking in the wrong place for the papers, I walked over so I could prove who it belonged to and then return home. I don't even know why I was startled when she pulled out a baseball bat from under the car seat and swung it at me. I should have known by now that this was typical of her. One of the officers who had arrived tried to intercede and stop her, but it resulted in him getting attacked instead. The other officer immediately had her in handcuffs, and I knew that there was no way she was getting out of an assault on a police officer case on top of a car theft and kidnapping accusation without some serious jail time. Furthermore, I of course pressed charges on her. To make a long story slightly shorter, my hellish mother-in-law ended up behind bars for her ridiculous criminal and entitled attitude, and I could not be more happy. We finally decided to cut contact with her for as long as needed, maybe forever, and we are much happier now. The next one is titled Worst Karen Ever. Alright, this happened a few years ago. I used to work for a coffee shop. Keep in mind that we were required to move through drinks quickly, this will be important later. I was on the coffee bar that day. And who do I see walk in? Yep, our most annoying Karen yet. She is so specific with her order to the point of staring at the baristas while making her drink. Which by far is one of the most irritating things that baristas hate when customers do. Anyway, this Karen knows this one barista who was a buddy of mine that does her drink right, and we all do it the same, so she asks for a caramel macchiato and goes into so much detail as usual. However, my buddy is on his off day, and since I was the one on the coffee bar, guess what? I had to deal with her this entire time. Whatever, I start making her drink, and every part of the process felt like it took 1,000 hours because she kept stopping me. Oh, can you just dump half a pump of vanilla out? Oh no, too much milk. Take a 1/4 teaspoon out. Can you tilt your body this way so I can see how you're making the drink? And yes, she really asked that. And there she said it as well, the most entitled sentence so far. You know, can you call the other barista that usually makes my drink to come in and just make it? I cannot believe what I just listened to be honest, and at first I thought she is joking. There is no way she's actually serious, right? Right? But no, she was serious. Ma'am, I just finished your drink, here you go. He knows how to do it right, just see if he wants to come in. Respectfully, ma'am, I'm not gonna do that, it's his day off. She then storms out like I cursed her out or something, and I also just think to myself that you don't have anything to do other than to wait here until he comes and makes your drink? Like seriously? I ended up telling my coworker about it, and he and I had a laugh. And the next one is titled Worst Entitled Mother Ever. This is my first time posting. I will try to keep the story short and to the point, but there does have to be some backstory for context. Here we go, this happened about 12 years ago. I had just moved to a small town. My 10-year-old daughter made friends with a girl down the block. The girl did not have many friends because her mom was the drama queen and nobody in the neighborhood wanted to deal with her. I did not want to punish the EM's daughter for her mom's behavior, and our daughters were thick as thieves in no time. About 6 months later, my daughter comes home from their house crying. Apparently, over an argument over who got to play with what Barbie, the other girl called my daughter the N-slur for people of color. When my daughter became quite visibly upset, the girl told my daughter something to the effect of, "It's not a bad thing, it's just what my mom says you and your mom are when you act like you're better than us. Just stop acting better and you won't be the N-slur." The EM called pretty quickly to apologize for her daughter talking out of turn and sharing personal family conversations. I explained to her that I was okay with the girls still being friends as long as the four of us could have a sit down and just kind of talk through why that word would be so hurtful to my kid. She agreed but made comments that made me feel like she thought I was overreacting. At the end of our conversation, I made it very clear our daughters would not be around each other until the sit-down happened. And then EM snaps. "This is what is wrong with you people. Always playing the race card and making a mountain out of a molehill. You are not gonna punish my daughter because you cannot get over yourself." I hung up and that was the end. Or so I thought. 1 month later, my daughter is at the park down the street from our house with the neighbor and her kids. I am cleaning the house when I get a phone call from the neighbor. Entitled Mom is EM, me is me, neighbor is N, and police officer PO, commanding officer CO. And oh my god, EM is here. She is screaming that the kids cannot ignore her kid at a public place. By law, they have to play with her daughter. I am packing up and coming back, just letting you know this witch is acting nuts. Me, do you need me to come? Neighbor, nah, I'm ignoring her. We will be home in a second or two. And then a few minutes later, I get another call and can hear screaming in the background. Neighbor, you won't freaking believe this. She called the police on your daughter. The cops are here. You need to get down here. I arrive and my daughter is shaking and crying, thinking that she has done something wrong. EM, meanwhile, is screaming like a madwoman at the top of her lungs about how my daughter being in a public place means she has to play with her daughter. EM, so what are you gonna do about this? Are you seriously just gonna let this girl stay at the park when she's refusing to play with my daughter? Police officer, ma'am, I'm sorry, but as I was saying, there's no law that kids have to play with each other in public parks. If she doesn't want to play with your daughter, she doesn't have to. EM, grab at the walkie-talkie thing on the cop's shoulder. I want to speak to your sergeant or something, or commanding officer or whatever. Someone needs to come do their frickin' job. The officer then called his commanding officer. I was simply stunned. I asked if my daughter could sit in my car as she was visibly shaken. He said she could, which of course sent EM on another rant. The CO pulls up as she is screaming about how my daughter needs to get out the car and play with her child. The CO comes and the officer is trying to explain to him what's going on as she is screaming a foot away. He comes over to me and I tell him the backstory on how this all started. CO, to me at this point, I don't see a reason for you two to still be here. You can take your daughter home. EM turning bright red at this point. This is why they are like this. Nobody holds them accountable for anything they do. She should at least get a ticket or something. I don't know what all was said after that. Me, the neighbor, and our kids got out of there quick. I did start looking for an apartment right away and found something about 2 months later. While I was packing, I got a call from EM and I let go to voicemail. I hear you're moving. I just wanted to let you know if you or any of your kids walk by my house before then, I'm calling the police for harassment. I don't care if it is James, my son that was 2 at the time. I cannot wait to hear what stupid crap you have to say about this when you call me back. I'm not gonna lie, I was tempted to call back, but I didn't. We moved a week later, thankfully. I am sending this from my phone, so please forgive any grammar or spelling issues. Edit, I'm not trying to make this super long. I don't know why the police did nothing, but they never did. She called them often on everyone and anyone. They always basically just apologized, calmed her down and left. When I say small town, it is less than 10,000 people and has a lot of farms. So much so that the high school literally has a bring your tractor to school day. I heard stories about her kids being wild at school as well, hitting teachers, biting and spitting. And they would just get sent home. I cannot say it's a fact, but it came from my kids and other kids in the area. As horrible as this is gonna sound, I think the whole town collectively decided to turn our backs on all of them to not have to deal with her. From the police to the schools to the parents. And Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I really hope that stories like these are just freak incidents and not the norm in small towns. I would really lose faith in humanity if this is common. How can someone be as stupid as this entitled neighbor? And not only stupid, but also racist and a complete idiot. But then again, I usually believe in the good in people, and I would say that 90% of society are not like this Karen. Stars, I gotta say, I really hope that stories like these are just freak incidents and not the norm in small towns. I would really lose faith in humanity if this is common. How can someone be as stupid as this entitled neighbor? And not only stupid, but also racist and a complete idiot. But then again, I usually believe in the good in people, and I would say that 90% of society are not like this Karen. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, I want to ask you for a favor. If you have watched until here, please check out my new channel called The Readers, where I and other voice actors post daily stories that you will very much enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow.